I'm Rhonda Engstrom with Holbrook and Associates. We're the Marley Cooling Tower representatives. And I'm following the outline for the training. Some of these items I'm going to go quickly through because it's kind of an overview of how cooling towers work. They cool water. No, there are no fish in our cooling tower. Our water is pretty good, but not that good. I don't know why Marley has this picture. Okay. The cooling tower is just designed to cool water. It cools by evaporation. The condenser water picks up the heat load, brings it to the cooling tower. Cooling tower moves the heat load from the water into the atmosphere by evaporation. Again, all it's doing is transferring heat around from your condenser water to the cooling tower and then out into the atmosphere. This is actually the design conditions for your tower. It's designed to run about 1500 GPM, and the goal is to achieve a 66 degree cold water temperature at your 63 degree wet bulb. Wet bulb is the theoretical coldest water temperature your cold water could reach. It will probably never actually get to that cold water temperature, but the cooling tower will always try to get it to that cold water temperature. This is your performance curve. Again, these are items that are required. This shows the wet bulb temperature along the bottom and the cold water temperature along the side. As the wet bulb temperature goes down, your cold water temperature can go down. The way that the cooling tower operates, or your cooling tower operates, is with a VFD. This allows only the amount of horsepower for the motor that is necessary to achieve the cooling. This is a graph of the wet bulb temperature versus the fan motor output. As the wet bulb drops, so does your fan motor horsepower go down. So all of this from, let's see, you have a 25 horsepower rated motor. This is all the money you're saving. These should just be dollar signs because of that VFD. Generally your cooling tower, you shut it on and off at the VFD, but in emergency you would just turn it off at the disconnect switch that should be at each tower. And then again, VFD for standard. It's an emergency, you would just switch it off at the cooling tower and probably lock it out, tag it out to see what's wrong. Oh, here's our lockout tag out message. Right there, see? That would be you. Lock out your motor and then inspect and see what the problem is. This is the vibration switch. It's up on the cooling tower right next to the motor. First you would make sure everything's okay. Sometimes they just trip because a little excess vibration. They're designed to not trip on startup. You would just, after you check to make sure everything was okay, you just push this button to restart it. And if you want to test it, all you have to do is just kind of bang on the lid right there right by it, and it'll trip it. That's how we tested it at startup. This is general operations. The MD user manual, you have some copies out here, and there's a copy with your information. Before you start up your cooling tower, you need to do your water treatment and biocides to prevent Legionella. This should be done by a professional water treater before you start the tower. It says to operate it for about 15 minutes, drain it, flush it, refill it, and then follow your biocide treatments. And this is generally done with your water treater to ensure that any safety hazards, which would be Legionella, are taken care of.
Can I get you to use the pointer? Get to use the pointer. Let's get your fingers.
Again, control of the cooling towers through the VFD. The VFD receives a signal either from the building, or sometimes we use a remote thermocouple in the condenser water to determine what the condenser water temperature it is. Then that signal goes back to the VFD and it tells the motor to slow down or speed up to get the desired set point on the cold water. You shouldn't allow your cooling tower cold water to drop below 36 to 40 degrees. And if you're running pretty cold water, you'd want to check in your louver face and your fill to make sure there's not an excess of ice forming. And don't operate your cooling tower in the winter without a heat load, or you'll freeze. It'll make a big mess. Seasonal shutdown. And it's recommended to drain the entire system. Leave the basin drains open, and the fan is required to be the fan motor is required to be operated for 3 hours a month. Oh, and please clean up your basin. You shouldn't see any slime, algae, excessive calcium buildup, which we call scale. You won't have white rust in this case, or solids in the water. And this goes back to the water treatment. The #1 way to take care of your cooling tower is professional water treatment. One, it will help prevent Legionella, and 2, it will help your cooling tower fill last longer because you won't get scale built up in your cooling tower. So my #1 recommendation is professional water treatment. One of the other things that the water treater will do, besides clean, biocide, take care of algae, prevent scale, is manage your blowdown of your cooling tower water. This just removes a little bit of water and helps manage the total dissolved solids in the condenser water. Again, please lock out, tag out. You want to make sure that the access around the tower is safe. There's no ice pond out there. And again, Legionella is a concern with cooling towers, and proper water treatment and keeping your water clean will help prevent that. Since it is a skull, we can't stress that enough. This is where the motor is located. This is actually the guard. Here's the motor, and here's a safety device over next to the motor sheave. Belt tensioning is on page 21 of your user manual, and the ideal tension is basically the lowest tension at which the belt will not slip. There's also a chart in the user manual that goes over how to do the proper tensioning with the tensioning tool. That is available. It's a Dodge V-belt tension tester, and then the chart's in the user manual. Page 24 has the sheave alignment. You'd put a straight edge between the motor sheave and the fan sheave back here, and you'd want to be all in the same plane with all four corners of your, or 4 points on your straight edge touching the fan and motor sheave. And then you would want to check and tighten your bushings and the supports, the bushings in the sheaves. Okay. The cooling towers are usually often just turned on and forgotten about, but there is some maintenance that is required to help your cooling towers last longer. They're excellent air scrubbers. They collect, as you know, all the dirt from the air, ends up in your cold water basin. But they don't create the dirt, they just filter it out of the air. Keeping your cooling tower clean has a significant impact on your whole system. One, the dirt that is brought in by the air and cleaned by your cooling tower can end up in your plate and frame heat exchangers and in other parts of your equipment. This is not a good example of cooling tower maintenance. There are ways to help keep your cooling tower basin clean, such as a LACO separator system, which would have basin sweeping nozzles to keep your basin clean. And actually I can bring that trailer in one day and demonstrate it to you guys. Generally, if you take good care of your fill, then you would have about 5 to 10 years of service out of it. I'd say a lot closer to 10 years with proper water treatment. Again, that's just dirt collected from the air. Just want to make sure that you, of course, keep your safety up, keep your tower clean, ensure that all your mechanicals are running properly. Your fan, there's a maintenance in your fan operation user manual. You want to make sure your structural components are all tightened, and of course your water treatment. This is the maintenance schedule that's included in the owner's manual. It has monthly, semi-annual, and annual or at shutdown items to go through. One of the things that they recommend is to observe how your cooling tower is supposed to operate when it's just running every day. That will help you to determine if there's any excess vibration that you kind of wonder about, as if you really understand how your cooling tower works when it's working correctly. This is a picture of some clogged fill. Again, that's scale, and proper water treatment would help prevent that. Sometimes people want to clean their fill or their drift eliminators, and they want to use a high pressure sprayer. That just damages the fill. This is just PVC plastic, and it just makes it all ratty. It can tear up into little pieces. It can get in your condenser water and get in your equipment. What is recommended is to let it dry and then just use like a little broom, one of those little stiff brooms, and just kind of brush through it carefully and get rid of some of that scale. And then maybe something on a low pressure and just gently clean it if you need to. The drift eliminators in your tower are located right above the water distribution system. They're about 4 inches thick, and you would need to place some sort of piece of plywood or something on there, and then you could stand on them after you lock out the tower. It looks like this is a repeat. oh, sorry, I'm pushing, it's dark in here, you guys. Pushing the wrong button. Say you want to inspect your cold water basin for leaks. Again, a water filtration system, basin cleaning, sweeping system would be excellent. Clean with a hose and a broom. You can drain, you'd have to drain and flush the tower and do all the chemicals again. And don't forget your equalizing piping between the cells. Lubricate your fan shaft bearings, and that's on page 32. It's right here next to where the motor's mounted. This is the safety cover for the motor. And there's a motor user manual also. And remember to run your cooling tower at least 3 hours a month. You guys have a basin heater. It includes a probe, the control panel, and then this is the element. The basin heater is designed to keep the cold water in the cooling tower basin when it's shut off at about a 40-degree temperature. And then every 12 months there is a checklist in the user manual. Again, one of the big things is double checking to make sure that your structure is all bolted, and then complete your necessary repairs. Okay, these are the major components of the cooling tower that may need repair. Basically, this is your fan. Your motor is actually mounted outside, but this was the only picture that there was that showed all the other items clearly. This right here is that about 4-inch thick drift eliminator. This is your spray system. This is the piping for it. This is the fill, the media which the water splashes over, and then the air comes in through these louvers over here on the side. The air comes in, and the water comes down, and it's a counterflow tower. And incidentally, in this particular tower, the drift eliminator material is the same material they use for the louvers. This just has a frame, and they use the same pack, the same drift eliminator pack to put in to the frames for the louvers. The louvers just help guide the air in and help with water splash out. This is just a little bit closer picture. This is actually someone removing one of those drift eliminator packs. He probably had to put a board down to distribute his weight, and then they just lift out, and they just fit together tightly, and that's how they stay in place. If you have any rain around the tower and it's not raining, then it may be that you have a leak or a hole in your drift eliminator so that the water can escape up through the tower. The drift eliminators just simply capture that little bit of, and it's just a tiny amount of water droplets that are encased in the plume and go out the top of the tower. These are the louvers. On this type of tower, they're in frames, and right here you would loosen this knob and pull this aside and lift the louver panel out. You can buy the complete louver with frame. You can ask for just the packs. Of course, it's much cheaper just to replace just the pack part of it. This is the inside of your tower. Again, these are the louvers right here. This is the cold water basin, your water inlet, and this is the I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, it's a cupboard to help the water suction plate as well.
Cavitation.
Alright, here in the top of the tower again, this is the distribution pipe. Right here are your nozzles. So it goes fill, distribution pipe with nozzles, and then drift eliminators, and then fan. There's the little nozzles. Again, there's another picture. Your drift eliminators will be right above this. The water sprays out in a nice pattern right here. This nice pattern, of course, helps with your heat transfer, but two, if one of these nozzles comes off and water's shooting down into your fill, you could damage your fill. And here's a picture of the nozzle just by itself. Our fan on this tower is a Confimco fan, and there is a user manual for it. And basically there's a bushing there with the bolts, and then the fan blades that can be individually pitched. And then you just want to make sure that the spacing here, the tracking is the same up and down, and from the tip of the fan blade over to the fan cylinder, that it's the same for all the fan blades. There's a troubleshooting guide on the last page of the user manual on page 38 and 39. It covers in depth various motor problems, unusual fan vibration, fan noise, again scaling, which is proper water treatment. You know, what are some of the things you can do if the water temperature is too warm, and then excessive drift, which would most likely be a hole in your drift eliminators, or maybe they're not quite wedged in right. Finally, of course, I don't work for a water treater, but I'm telling you, water treatment is the best way to maintain your tower. And that's all we have for
The louvers. Up there you see those little knobs, you can loosen those. We've got that little frame to lift out the louver panels. This is, I believe,
Talk
for
just a little louder.
water level control. That just has a makeup probes and probably low or high water shutoff. That's the control panel for the basin heater, right there. Over to the left is the probe to the wire coming out. It measures the temperature and makes sure there's enough water in the cooling tower for the heater to come on. Right below that is the element, the basin heater element. Oh, is that my
Laser pointer.
Trust me with that?
Right there. There you go.
Right there. Excuse me. Basin heater element, probe with low water cutoff, and control panel, disconnect switch for the basin heater. Again, control panel for the water level switch, The probes are inside here at various levels for the makeup and the low and high water cutoff. Or actually it's signal.
Should.
Right up here is the water inlet from your building.
And the rest of the cooling tower motor and equipment is up there. So that's the motor, fan motor. Right here is where you adjust the tensioning for the belt. Above that is the cover. There's a cover right there. And then the belts in there. There's a little guard that you would have to remove once the tower's locked out. But while it's operating, of course, you're going to have this on there. And then up on top of that is the vibration switch with that reset button. It'll be right up there.
Gearbox on up there.
No, it's a belt drive. It's got a motor and fan shift. It's got a pulley. Instead of a gear casing.
You want to grease the shaft on it. It recommends you rotate the blade while you're greasing it. There's a zerk up there. And just grease it till you get a little bit of grease around the outside of the shiv up there.
Oh yeah.
That's all you need to do every 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you want to check the pitch periodically, the tracking. You want to make sure all the blades are level as they spin across there. If you do take the drift eliminators out to check the sprinkling system, they have a direction they're supposed to go in. So you just leave one in place so you know which direction they go in. Otherwise, you're going to get water droplets spilling all over the place out here.
Right.
And it's important to make sure none of those sprinklers up there clog, because if they do, you're not going to get the cooling you need. And if one of those wears out and actually has a stream of water going down, it'll cut a big hole in there. And you'll get all those pieces down in your
System.
in the system down there. Gosh, other than that, I mean, you check the alignment periodically. There's a tensioner up there. It's very easy. The tension only has to be tight enough so that it runs at maximum load. And you don't want it any tighter. You don't want to use belt dressing on there. You inspect the belt for cracks periodically. Keep an eye on the water basin to check for silt buildup, and you'll get an idea of how long it takes for the silt to build up after a while, and you'll know when to clean that out. You want to make sure there's nothing clogged on the inlets. No debris is sucked in there. Of course, anytime you work on anything, you lock and tag it out. And I would suggest, I always use my own lock. I brought my own personal lock so that no one else could take it off and start it up, because the fan could do some damage.
And that is true. One is, just because the fan's not moving, or just because you shut it off at the VFD, doesn't mean you necessarily got the right fan motor. Because it could be easy to go in the building, get the wrong one, come out here, think you have this one locked out, when it's best just to come over and turn it off right there at the disconnect, put your lock on it, and then there's no chance that you made a mistake, or somebody made a mistake and said, yeah, I shut off one. Well, on this side, to me, this one's one, but standing on the other side, they might think that one's one, and I'm not sure how you guys are designating your cooling towers. And then I have one customer whose first and third cells were installed incorrectly at the VFD. So they've marked on the VFD, third cell, second cell, first cell, but they're numbered the opposite way outside. So you can see where that could lead to a tragedy. So if you just lock it out here, then you don't have to worry about it. I think you were going to go over pitching the blades.
Oh yeah,
you
well
do that?
you have to take the screen off of there, and various towers have different degrees of pitch on them. You basically get a protractor, and I think this one has the U-bolts on top, and you just adjust it and tighten it down. Now when you do that, sometimes the tracking adjusts automatically, but you want to get the tip of the blade and mark on the cylinder, and then rotate the next blade around so that it lines up with that mark as well. So you don't get one blade low and high, because that'll cause vibration on there. Okay, and you check that out. A new tower, after it's ran for a while, you want to check that again.
On the maintenance schedule.
Yeah, on the maintenance part. I mean, they're very easy to take care of. It's basically a big swamp cooler if you're familiar with that. Most houses in Utah have those. Water goes down
Are
through
all
the
three of
top,
them hooked together?
circulates.
I believe
They're
that
not
they're,
individual cell.
I believe you have, let's see. I believe you guys have, equalizer line underneath here, don't you? Are they connected underneath or is there a flume?
They're all tied to the same header.
They're all
on
tied
the same header.
underneath the tower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See
so you'll
everybody
have,
else?
yeah, so you'll be able to isolate the towers easily. So they would be individual. That way, if you wanted to just work on one tower, you know, you could shut off the equalizer line and get in there and isolate that one tower. After you lock it out.
Yeah.